Australia should actively support Indonesia's military modernisation. That's the conclusion of ASPI's latest report. Today with me is the author, Benjamin Shrier. Hi, Ben. Firstly, Ben, tell me, why is it so important for Australia to support Indonesia's military modernisation?
Indonesia is Australia's most important regional defence and security partnership. A stronger, militarily more capable democratic Indonesia is the best thing that can happen to Australia, because if you think about a map in the Asia-Pacific region, Indonesia is the buffer for Australia against any unwanted security developments in the Asia-Pacific region. That means an Indonesia capable of defending itself will also be able to defending Australia. And in that sense, Australia has a vital strategic interest in a stronger, more capable Indonesia, which is increasingly looking outward instead of maintaining that focus on internal security.
And is there any need to be concerned about closest neighbour?
I don't think so. Historically, Australia has had periods where we were concerned about Indonesia's strategic trajectory. We had crises in the past, most recently in 1999 over East Timor. But that said, Indonesia is on a path of democratic stabilization, economic prosperity, and Indonesia does not have an expansionist military program. It does not have an expansionist foreign policy. And therefore, I would argue that we should go away with Indonesia as a potential military threat, but should embrace its military modernization as something, if it is properly managed, actually something being good for Australia's security and defence.
In the report, you suggest that they may not meet all of their ambitious plans. Where do you feel are their strengths and where are their weaknesses?
Well, Indonesia has very ambitious plans for military modernization. So, for example, over the next 10 to 15 years, it wants to develop a 274-ship navy. It wants to acquire 10 fighter squadrons. It wants to acquire or develop 12 new diesel-electric submarines. And it wants to develop a much more agile land force. That is a high level of ambition because Indonesia's military modernization basically starts from scratch. And that means Indonesia, despite major ambitions, will probably not be able to achieve most of its goals by 2024, 2025, which is the timeline that the Indonesian government has set itself for the key components to be implemented. When it comes to the strength of Indonesia's current push for modernization, Indonesia benefits from access to more sophisticated military equipment such as anti-ship missiles, new frigates, and it has made some limited progress towards being able to better control its maritime approaches. So, for example, the Navy is investing into new frigates, wants to acquire new patrol boats. The Air Force has acquired more modern fighters, and the Army has made some progress towards greater agility of its force. However, by and large, the TNI will remain, at least in my assessment, an imbalanced force for a very long time. That means it is lacking critical enablers. Some of its major equipment decisions are more driven by prestige than by operational utility. It acquires shiny new equipment, so to say, without the ability of actually to sustain, to maintain it, that is to actually translate military equipment into military capabilities, which are two different things. So by and large, the TNI remains an imbalanced force. It will make selective improvements, but it won't be able to achieve many of the ambitious goals that it has set for itself.
You do mention throughout the report a concern of purchasing equipment that they're also unable to service. What do you feel is the strongest recommendation you can give in terms of their capability development?
Well, that is really one of the key problems for TNI. It seeks to introduce much more sophisticated equipment, but the more sophisticated your equipment, the more important it is that you are able to service it, that you are able to sustain and maintain it. And there, TNI really has huge problems to overcome. Australia, on the other hand, has, enormous expertise and knowledge in this area. The ADF is a highly capable force. It is technologically extremely competent, and it has a long tradition of knowing how to operate, how to sustain, how to maintain sophisticated military equipment. And this is where we can offer something. For example, one of the key recommendations of the report is to bring in the Defense Material Organization and offer the expertise of DMO to the Indonesians and helping them in terms of exposing them to state-of-the-art military sustainment processes, getting better at maintaining and sustaining some of these key military technologies.
You also mention in your report staff exchanges to strengthen our relationship with the Indonesian TNI. What other recommendations can you make to strengthen our relationship with our closest neighbour?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that as Indonesia is growing stronger comparatively to Australia, we have to have a different approach in how we deal with the TNI. So the days where we can just offer, surplus defense equipment are gone. What we have to think about is sort of the defense relationship more as a two-way street. And that means that apart from offering or increasing staff exchanges, which are important, we have to think about additional ways. So I mentioned the DMO assistance. What we can also think about is strengthening joint maritime surveillance activities, helping Indonesia or offering to help when it comes to developing doctrine or capability planning, because many of the processes that we tend to to see as a given within the ADF, and they are a given in terms of capability development, these processes, these skills are largely absent in the TNI, and this is where I think we can make a contribution, where we can offer something which goes beyond staff exchanges, military exercises, etc., etc. These are important, but I feel that we have to basically go to the next level, which is not easy to do, but I think which is something that could be done as we are moving forward.
Benjamin Trier, thank you.
Thanks, Cass.